So I'm a movie theater manager, and as a movie theater manager, one of my jobs is to deal with customers. And if you've ever dealt with customers, you know they're kind of a pain in the ass. I mean, whoever came up with the phrase "the customer is always right" must have been on some crack that day, because man, some customers I just don't understand. So today I'm going to be giving you some stories about my work, and hold on. Okay, that's a bit better. So to start off, I'm going to be talking about bag checks. Now, working in a movie theater, our policy is that if you bring in a large bag, we have the right to check it. This is common policy across many theaters, and it's mostly due to safety reasons. And normally people are okay with it, but sometimes people aren't. One example of this, I remember I was standing in concessions one day, and I see this one lady come in with just an airport's worth of luggage. And when I say an airport's worth of luggage, I mean an airport's worth of luggage. Like, she literally just came from the airport and decided, hey, I want to go see a movie. So anyway, she comes into the movie theater with her airport's worth of luggage, and because I'm the manager, I decide to stop her and say, hey, we need to check your bags before we let you inside the theater for security purposes. And immediately she goes, can I talk to your manager? Now, at this point in time, I was pretty new at being a manager. It was like, I'd say my second month being a manager at that location. But it felt so good to pull the I am the manager card on her. And then, of course, because she's not happy with what I had to say, she's like, can I talk to someone else then? I'm like, sorry, I'm the only manager here right now. I really wasn't. But I mean, my boss was in the office doing, paperwork and stuff. And I'm sure she didn't want to be bothered with some Karen complaining about a bag check. So anyway, Karen and her kids throw their bags on the ground. They're like, well, okay, check it. And I tell her, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not allowed to actually touch your belongings. It's a company policy. I need you to open the bags and go and show me what's inside. So she reluctantly does so, all while complaining that she's going to be late to her movie. So I do the bag check, and because she was being a bitch the entire time, I decide to take my sweet time, making sure that there are absolutely no weapons or anything in there. Because, hey, I don't know. She could have a whole buffet in this airport's worth of luggage. I don't know what she's bringing to the movie theater. But anyway, Karen finally gets her bags checked. Everything's all good to go, and she goes off to her movie. Rest of the day had really no complaints. But it was really my first time pulling the I am the manager card and dealing with a Karen like that. But, being a manager, there's always going to be more. And this next story actually happened very recently. So, again, the theater chain that I work for has a policy of, checking bags. So it was a Sunday afternoon, and anyone that's ever worked any kind of retail job will know that Sundays are the worst, because on Sundays, you get the after-church crowd. And the after-church crowd is some of the most rude people you will ever meet in your entire life. Like, they are the most entitled people on the planet. And the fact that they just went to church, they had their soul cleansed, they're good to do their bad deeds for the week. So they like to harass people who work minimum wage jobs. Anyway, I'm doing bag checks and, checking tickets as customers are coming in. This one lady scoffs at me the second I say, hey, can I check your bag? It's company policy. It's for safety reasons, my usual spiel. She's like, that's an invasion of privacy. How dare you? I'm like, well, we have the right to check your bag for security purposes. If you don't feel comfortable, I can have you bring it out back to your car, but I can't let you bring it into the theater without checking it first. So again, reluctantly lets me check her bag. Everything's all good. She goes inside and I think everything's fine. Apparently this lady had went up to my co-manager and started complaining about me. And the thing is, I was the higher level manager at this time. So, my co-manager is like, oh, I can direct you to my supervisor if you have any problems with that. And my co-manager points her in my direction and she just gets pissed off. Like, she threatens to write a letter to corporate to try and get me fired because I checked her bag, and apparently that is an invasion of privacy. You know what I found in her bag? I found a couple Reese cups and some tampons. Stuff that I really don't care about. Anyway, we're going to get away from bag check stories. Instead, we're going to talk about kids being assholes. Now, if you were to ask me, I would say that kids and seniors are the absolute worst when it comes to movie theater customers. If I could ban them from my movie theater, I absolutely would, because kids, I don't even know where to start. So for my first story, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite stories. It's a story that I've titled, Ron's Gone Wild. And if you know anything about the phrase, gone wild, you can probably infer where this is going. Anyway, it's a normal day at work. I'm sitting in the office doing my manager paperwork and stuff. And I hear over the radio, one of the floor staff call me over and saying, "Hey, can you come over to Theater 6? Now, I was working the night shift at the time, and I saw that only 2 people bought to Ron's Gone Wrong. And the thing with Ron's Gone Wrong is that it's a kids movie, and the 2 people who bought to it were teenagers. And typically teenagers in kids movies, it's a red flag. Now, I'm not saying that teenagers can't enjoy, a good, animated kids movie. However, typically when teenagers buy into these kinds of movies, it usually leads to some kind of trouble. So anyway, I hear over the radio, "Hey, can you come to Theater 6? And I'm walking over to Theater 6. And while I'm walking over there, I'm going, "Hey, what's wrong? What's going on? What do you need me for?" Just trying to, figure out what's going on so that I can handle the situation once I get there. So we get in front of the theater, and I'm told, "Hey, I think they're having sex in there." And I'm like, "What?" So I go inside. I don't see them. So I start walking up the aisle, and I get to the top of the theater, back of the theater, top row. I get just an entire moon in my face. Like, a full moon. I was just in shock. The look on the dude's face after I caught them doing it in a movie theater was just priceless. So anyway, I walked down by the exit door to give them some time to, get their pants on and stuff. And they take the walk of shame outside the theater. And the thing I don't understand is that this is a kid's movie. Ron's Gone Wrong is a kid's movie. What if a mother and her kids were in this movie watching it? Why are you doing it in a kid's movie? And also, why are you doing it in a movie theater? I don't know if you've ever been to a movie theater, but they're disgusting. It is very hard to fully clean those theaters. And you're doing it in the later part of the day. You're doing it towards the night when we've already had a couple showings in there. That floor that you're doing it on is disgusting. I think of all my experiences working in a movie theater, that was probably my most traumatizing experience. So the next set of kids we're going to talk about are kids that I would consider to be regulars. We see them once a month. I mean, it's not too frequent, but it's frequent enough to where we will recognize them and make sure to keep an eye on them. Anyway, this was one of the floor staff's first day, and these kids come in and they're just kind of harassing other customers and the concession staff. And I'm like, "Hey, if you're going to do this, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Can you guys just go to your movie and just leave the staff alone?" The thing with kicking someone out of a movie is that whenever someone is kicked out, I have a ton of paperwork to fill out. Basically, where I have to explain, why I kicked them out, why it was the last resort, and it's just a huge pain. And to be honest, it was a Monday night. I genuinely didn't want to deal with it. So I was a bit too lenient with these kids. So anyway, they go to their movie, and I think everything's fine, and then I see them run across the lobby into the R-rated section. And I turn to one of the floor staff and I'm like, hey, can you go check that out and make sure they're not sneaking into R-rated movies? They come back with the kids and I'm like, hey, can you guys please stop causing a ruckus and just watch your movie? And, they go back to their movie. And then a few minutes later, they come back to concessions and, again, are harassing other customers and the floor staff. This one girl was talking to them as if she knows them. And I'm like, hey, if you know them, can you tell them to stop? Like, I don't want to deal with filling out paperwork. Can you please tell them to stop so I don't have to kick them out? And she's like, oh, I don't know them. And I'm like, what? Why are you talking to them like you know them then? Like, this makes no sense. Anyway, kids have been kind of being a ruckus throughout the night. And again, I'm being more lenient than I should be because I don't like filling out the paperwork. It's just a huge pain. But the straw that broke the camel's back was I was in the count room doing money, getting all the nightly money all done and, sorted. Doors are locked. Registers are shut down. Everything seems, fine. I'm counting money. And I hear over the radio the kids saying, hey, manager, where you at? And at this point, I am just fuming. I am just done with these kids because they have been being a complete nuisance the entire night. And I come storming out of the room and I'm like, you guys need to leave right now. You guys need to leave right now or I'm calling the cops. And trust me, you do not want me to do that. So they leave the building. And I'm kind of pissed off because now I have to fill out a bunch of paperwork. And I know that from the story, I've clearly been being more lenient with these kids than I should have. But again, I have to fill a ton of paperwork out if I kick someone out. So I didn't want to do that on a Monday night. So I call my general manager. I'm like, hey, I had to kick these kids out. And my general manager goes, okay, you just need to call the district manager and then fill out all this paperwork. I call the district manager, tell them, hey, these kids were being rude. They stole a radio and all this stuff. And I have to explain that, they got the radio because one of the concessionists had left the radio on the counter. It was just a huge thing. And then after all this is said and done, I have to fill out an email and send it to corporate. It was a very fun Monday night. And, it's this one girl's first day. And I believe, leaving the radio on the concession counter was a genuine mistake. But I told her, hey, don't ever do this again. I will write you up. Because, customers are not allowed to use our radios. You're not allowed to use a radio if you don't work there. Very, common sense. So after that, I fill out my paperwork. Everything the rest of the night goes pretty smoothly. So I'm going to end this video off with one more story. And if you want more stories, I do have plenty of stories to tell in the future. So leave a comment if you want more work stories. I'll definitely be doing more at some point. But to end this story off, we're going to be talking about who I have dubbed Downton Abbey Lady. Now, this is actually something that happened a few days ago. For anyone that doesn't know, Downton Abbey was like a British TV show thing that got turned into a movie. And recently, Downton Abbey 2 came out, and it's been very popular among the senior crowd. Typically these kind of movies bring a lot of senioritis into the theaters, and it's just, as I mentioned, seniors can be a huge pain to deal with. Anyway, it's about 4:30 in the afternoon. I am getting ready to go in like a half an hour. I'm pretty much done with the day. And, I'm sitting in the office doing manager stuff. And by manager stuff, I mean just scrolling on Reddit, waiting for my shift to end. And I hear over the radio, hey, can you come to concessions? There's someone that wants to talk to you. So I come out, and my coworker points me to where this lady is sitting, and I walk over, and she's like, why aren't you showing Downton Abbey? And I'm like, because the movie's been out for about a month, and it's not as popular. She's like, well, I called ahead, and whoever I talked to said you guys had it. I'm like, well, who did you talk to? She's like, well, I don't know her name, but it was a girl. I'm like, okay, well, what do you want me to do? I can read you showtimes for next week. So she says, well, obviously your employees don't know how to read showtimes. She's just going off about how it is such a crime that we are not showing Downton Abbey. It turns out she called a different theater, and that different theater was showing Downton Abbey at this time. We weren't. I told her, well, I can give you showtimes for next week. That's really all I can do. I can't just go and play the movie upstairs. Like, I'm very sorry about that, but I would get in huge trouble if I were to go and play it just for you. Anyway, I give her showtimes for next week. I tell her, hey, just feel free to call if you have any issues. She's like, well, I called earlier and clearly you guys don't know what you're doing. And I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, I give this lady the direct line to the theater because I just don't want to deal with her. And I go over and talk to my coworker, and she told me I didn't answer the phone at all today. And that's kind of how I figured out that she called a different theater, thought it was us, and then got mad that we weren't showing the movie. So yeah, those are some of my work stories. If you want to hear more, I will definitely be doing more sometime in the future. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you guys all have a nice day, and I'll see you soon.